Hey everybody, Bill Sky, the C++ guy, back again with another loop video, and this one's going to be on do-while loops. I really recommend that you take a look at the while loop video that preceded this one, because you're going to be able to compare and contrast the two different types of loops. They do a lot of the same thing, except the do-while loop is what they call a post-condition loop, which means it's going to ask the question whether it should do the loop again after the loop is done one time. And that means that the do-while loop will always execute one time. The while loop, on the other hand, may never execute depending upon the return value of the condition inside of the while loop parentheses. But a do-while loop will always execute at least one time. A do-while loop is really great for user input. It's something that I use all the time for that. So let's take a look. So what I've got here is I've got the switch statement project open again, and this is the same project that we used in the menu switch statement as well as the while loop video. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this goto. We've got a goto here that goes to the menu, and if I come all the way down here, we can see the goto. Let's get rid of that. Now we're always going to want to print the menu at least one time, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say do with an open brace. And that is a do-while loop without the while yet, okay? So that means do whatever is inside of the parentheses while to upper user response is not equal to X. So that is my do-while loop, where you specify that I want to do something while something is true. So the do-while loop, and I keep getting this wrong, don't I? I've got to put that parenthesis there. It must be retirement. It has me so relaxed. Now I've got some interesting things here. So let's save and build this. So the problem here is that it's really interesting because it doesn't really tell what's going on here. But I just noticed that I didn't label my if statement here. I forgot the close brace for the do. So by closing it off right there, we can then have the while loop. Now, a lot of programmers will do this, which is perfectly fine. And it's all based on whatever the standards are at your company or whatever your personal preference is. I actually like doing it this way. Now, we don't need this if statement anymore, so we're going to get rid of that. All right, now let's save and build this. All right, awesome. Now, let's talk a little bit about what's going to happen here. On a while loop, you ask the question first whether or not you should do what's inside of the loop. If the result of the condition inside of the while loop parentheses is true, you're going to do it. However, a do-while loop, you always do the inside of the braces first. You do that first, and then the question is asked, should I do it again? If the result of that is true, then the do will happen again. Then the loop will happen again. However, if the result of that is false, it'll end. Now, if you remember, if you watched the while loop video, we had to set the value of user response to something to make absolutely sure that it was not X. Well, with the do-while loop, you don't have to do any of that. Now, I promote initializing variables all the time when you create them. However, in this situation, you really don't have to. I would still do it, but you really don't have to, because the do loop, the do part of the do-while loop will always execute. Now, I'm saying a lot here. Let's go ahead and build and run this. And I'm going to look at the compiler output first. Okay, looks good. And now let's go ahead and run this. And let's see if it operates the same way. Okay, so I'm going to type a Z, invalid, that works. H, works. G, works. Integer, 10, that works. Let's put a Z, yep, works. Let's put an X, and the program ends. So do-while loops are probably the most used loops for user input and menu processing because you always want to do this first. You don't have to worry about initializing the response, in this case the response variable, which is part of the condition. Now you can always also, like I said in the while loop discussion, you can also always say true and then have some kind of an if statement here. If to upper user response equals X, I can then break out of the loop. I can also continue, just like in a while loop. And the continue will not take you down here, it'll take you back up to the top of the do. So this works as well. But this is not, I would probably be ostracized for doing this. In fact, I don't think I've ever done this on a do while loop. I've done this on a while loop, but I've almost never done it on a do while loop because I've always used do while loops for user input and data validation. So I'm going to get rid of that. That's ugly as anything. So remember, a while loop is a precondition test, which means it checks to see the condition is true before it does the insides of the while loop. A do while loop is a post-condition test, which means that the do is done first, the contents of the loop is done first, and then the question comes up, should I do it again? So a do while loop always executes at least one time. A while loop can maybe execute 0 times, depending upon how you have the condition. So there's our do while loop in contrast to our while loop. If you haven't looked at the while loop video, take a look at it. There's a link in the description of this video, and I hope to see you next for for loops.